Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So there were a bunch of 9.8 auctions that just ended last night on at Comic Link. So I just want to go over some of those sales prices. And certainly there's quite a few books that are cooling down. But in this group of auctions there were also some big key issues, like older key issues, that had sold in the 9.8 for pretty big prices as well. So an interesting list to have a look at. First one, An Amazing Spider-Man number 101. First appearance of Morbius. This one's a cool one in the 9.8. White pages as well, this one was, for $25,484. So yeah, you know, whatever your budget is, there's a 9.8 comic out there for you, for sure. On this one, I'm not too sure of the price history, to be honest. I think this one was a little bit more expensive leading into that Morbius movie, which admittedly kind of bombed. So I think right now it's probably a pretty decent time for this one. But you might have to kind of check your GPA apps. I'm not too sure of the price history on An Amazing Spider-Man 101 9.8. But interesting to see one sell for $25,484. Next one, huge key. Amazing Spider-Man 129. First appearance of Punisher. Cool to see this one just kind of sell in a fire sale auction with the market kind of cooling down a little bit. Was really interested to see what this one would go at. It was a white pages one in an old case for $39,000 for first appearance of Punisher. Amazing Spider-Man 129 is absolutely a no-brainer comic book to invest in, whatever grade. This one had been a little bit higher in the past. I'm pretty sure I remember these sort of in that 40,000 range, like, you know, a year ago when the comic book market was certainly a little bit hotter during that time. But such a big key, still seems like it's kind of hanging in there, getting a pretty decent buck at $39,000 even. All the prices are in US dollars that we'll talk about as well. Next one, a big key as well, Conan the Barbarian, number 1. Origin and first appearance of Conan. Cool one in a super high grade 9.8. White pages as well on this one for $10,750. Sorry, so a little over $10,000 for Conan the Barbarian number 1. Not too sure. I'm not the biggest Conan fan myself, and I'm not too sure of the price history on this one either. You might, you know, want to check your GPAs if you got that, the GPA app. But this one's selling for $10,750. Next one is Amazing Fantasy 15 from 2006. So first appearance of Amadeus Cho in this one, and a modern 9.8, and it looks like this one's cooling down just a little bit, selling for $1,455. Was kind of surprised that this one, like we had documented quite a few in the last 3 to 6 months, where they were still right around like 2,000, kind of in the 1,900 range. And I thought it was hanging in there quite well for like a modern comic book. It is a really tough one in a 9.8 too. It's got a favorable 9.8 ratio for a comic book that had kind of come out after the year 2000. So if you're a Totally Awesome Hulk fan, if you're an Amadeus Cho fan, I think you can start to think about this one under 1,500. Maybe it gets kind of in that 1,250 range. I think it's kind of one to buy if, you know, certainly if you're the biggest Amadeus Cho fan. So one selling for $1,455 in this group of auctions. Next one's An Amazing Spider-Man number 194. The first appearance of Black Cat, Felicia Hardy. I've always liked this one, but recently it has really like heated up to kind of another level. And this price though, maybe just cooling down a little bit. Certainly better than we had documented a few direct editions that had sold right around $5,000. But this one going for $4,100. And, you know, if this one's going to cool down a little bit more, if you start seeing kind of 3,900 on it in a direct edition looking great, I think that's where you can pretty much step in on this one. It's, yeah, an expensive one, a serious one, but, yeah, Black Hat, there's some potential there. I think, you know, she could come out looking awesome in like a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and that would be a positive for this book. But it's just, this one just stands on its own as, you know, great cover, great collector item in a 9.8. Under $4,000 would be great, but one selling for $4,100. Next one, Amazing Spider-Man number 238. First appearance of Hobgoblin. Great cover. Saw a direct and a newsstand sell in this batch of auctions. That's always pretty cool. The direct edition sold for $2,500. newsstand for $3,152. So these are probably, 10 or 20% cooler than, kind of dropping in price than to some that we've documented recently. I think the directs were more kind of $2,900, $2,800. This one going for $2,500. Newsstand $3,152. That's a pretty solid deal as well. I think the newsstands were certainly they were over $4,000 at one point, but even more recently, they were kind of like $3,500. Let's call it, not $3,152. But yeah, some price targets to aim for on that one. I think that one's cooling down a little bit as well. Yeah, speaking of cool downs, Amazing Spider-Man 252. So I brought out my newsstand edition because similar to the last book, a direct and a newsstand had sold. So newsstand edition sold for $2,422, which I think that's a pretty solid price. With things kind of cooling down, it even seems maybe like a borderline overpay. They've been sort of going around that price recently. But the direct edition had sold for $1,377. And that's the lowest I've saw in quite a long time. They were just, kicking around not too long after the Spider-Man movie had come out. These were right around $2,000 in the direct edition, and one had sold about a couple weeks ago for $1,700. And I thought, hey, this is one to kind of keep an eye on if it cools down a little bit more. And now at $1,377. I think that is just kind of pretty much a price to just get in there right now on. If you want to wait and be a little more strategic, maybe it cools down to kind of the 1,100 level. These were about, before the Spider-Man movie. This in the direct edition, this one was kind of, $950, $1,000, and then the market heated up, and the movies were being talked about and anticipated. And the direct editions, shot up to way over $2,000. $1,377 this one's selling for. I think that's a price to aim for, basically, if you want a 252. And the newsstand selling for $2,422. Next is an Amazing Spider-Man 300 in a direct edition, selling for $4,900. And the most recent ones have been selling for $5,000 that I've saw. So this one's kind of right around that level. If you're looking for an Amazing Spider-Man 300 origin and first appearance of Venom, I have two of these, and maybe it cools down just a little bit more, but if it's looking great, this one is a really tough one for a 1980s key issue in a 9.8. So yeah, just a little bit under $5,000 I think is kind of the fair value right now on an Amazing Spider-Man 300, 9.8 in the direct edition. Amazing Spider-Man 316. Yeah, this one I think was probably a little bit prone to a cool down, it being a bit of a secondary Venom key issue. And saw one sell for $720. Yeah, and I thought they were kind of like $800 to $900, let's say. So maybe getting under $800 now into the $700s. Yeah, I think $720 is a pretty great one. If you're a McFarlane fan, if you're a Venom fan, that one, I think it got up to about $1,500 there when about a year and a half ago when the comic book market was a lot hotter. But now it's $720, a way better timing on that one. No Venom movies kind of being anticipated right now. So I like the timing on a lot of the Venom key issues right now. And 316 selling for $720. Saw an Amazing Spider-Man 361. First full appearance of Carnage in the direct edition, sell for $501. So there had been a few of these that I kind of went, I think one, it was like $426 or $450 one had sold for. And this book, in the direct edition especially, has just really plummeted in value. But maybe they'll kind of settle in around the 500 level. Maybe you want to be strategic, aim a little bit closer to 400 on an Amazing Spider-Man 361. That one's really dropping in value for sure, especially in the direct edition. I do like the newsstand edition on that one. Next one, of Avengers Annual, number 10. First appearance of Rogue, first appearance of Madeline Pryor in this one as well. One for me, love the first appearances, but never really loved the cover. I didn't really think it was like a very collectible cover. This one's cooling down. Yeah, there were a lot of rumors when the comic book market was quite a bit hotter that, X-Men's coming to the MCU and all these really heated up. This one's selling for $977. So this one was like, it was 1,600, 1,700, and the newsstands were right around 2,000, maybe even a little bit over during a period there. But $9.77, you know, if you like that one, it's a better time to buy than it was a year and a half ago. So yeah, one selling for $977. Next one is Batman 423. So interesting on this one. You know, I'm a big McFarlane fan, huge Batman fan myself. So, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, I grabbed these for a little over. I think one was 400, one was like 450 or so. Batman 423 9.8 selling for $2,905. So I don't know if just a bidding war kind of broke out on this one, but this one is one of those books that, like, maybe this is one that's rising in value right now. There's not very many that are. But pretty stiff price for a Batman 423, $2,905 on these Comic Link auctions. One selling for last night. Next one, Batman Adventures number 12 in the 9.8, a direct edition. First appearance of Harley Quinn overall, selling for $2,700. So just talked about this one on a recent video, that it's getting close to $2,500. That's a pretty great level for this one. Whereas, you know, last 6 to 12 months, a lot had sold around the 3,000, you know, 3,100, 2,900, like right in that range. Now they're getting a little closer to 2,500. This one going for 2,700, which I think is a pretty decent deal for a really tough 1990s 9.8 comic with that big first appearance. Here's one that's cooling down. That's getting just in that kind of no-brainer buy zone, I think, right now, is Batman The Dark Knight Returns number 1. In a 9.8. So, you know, in the past, the Batman movie kind of building up to that. Saw this one go for about 1,700 occasionally. A few had kind of gone in the last 3 months for about 1,500. But this one going for $1,233. It wasn't an old case, but it looked pretty solid. It's a very simple cover, so you can kind of notice some of the scuffs and scratches, but this one looked pretty solid in an old case. So $1,233, cooling down just a little bit, which is understandable. You know, the Batman movie's kind of done it with, and you know, the hype is kind of ratcheting down a little bit. But yeah, maybe even just a little bit closer to 1,000 if you want to be strategic on The Dark Knight Returns number 1. But absolutely one I would recommend if you're a Batman fan. It's kind of like the first appearance of a new modern Batman, and then this is like pretty much the first modern comic book. A lot of people say like the first Copper Age comic book ever, where, you know, it was dark and there was politics in it, and it wasn't just like a very like naive comic book story, which a lot of comic books were up to this point. So a lot of people just, for many reasons, love The Dark Knight Returns number 1. So closer to 1,000 on that one in a 9.8 is one to look out for if you're a Batman fan. Last one, this one selling in those Comic Link auctions, ending last night, Batman Beyond number 1. In a 9.8 in that first print for $1,857. So still pretty stiff prices on the Batman Beyond number 1. Yeah, we saw a few kind of go in that 1,700 range. I think, you know, if you want to be strategic on this one, you can aim around that price. But this one going for $1,857. Not too many of them in a 9.8, a late 90s book, not very heavily printed. So Batman Beyond's a pretty tough one to get in a 9.8 for a solid price. This one going for $1,857. Okay, I'll put a full list in the description below with the prices as well. But that's the full price list. Yeah, there's certainly a few books cooling down. I think the market is absolutely cooling down right now, pulling back a little bit. But you know, still some big prices for some older 9.8s, and overall, you know, values are kind of hanging in there. There's, you know, I wouldn't say anything's kind of plummeting, but if you're a buyer, yeah, some of these prices are looking more attractive. So from that standpoint, it's a positive. All right, team. Thanks so much for watching, though. I will see you on the next one. If you're liking my content, please subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll keep you updated on future videos.